Okay. We're going to satisfy your first request.
Cool. Thanks a lot, man.
In what station do you love?
KROQ.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
So it's pretty obvious that my entire life, from the time I was, aware of what was going on, the first, what would you discount? First 8 years of your life, first 9 years, so much of it is jumbled and forgotten. You just don't get to keep any of that. I've done shows where I've lamented like, oh, so much of my life, the beginning you don't get to keep. Oh, that's okay, because the latter parts are crammed with so much you wish you could forget. Maybe there's a way you could make a galactic trade. You go, I'll trade this 6 months for 6 months when I was 4, and you can trade off, because in Return of the Jedi, Luke asks Leia, like, what do you remember of your mother? Nothing really, just glimpses, really, feelings, and that's actually pretty good dialogue, because it does encapsulate what you can remember from the first parts of your life, but up until you don't get to keep them. They're just not there. You can probably dig them out somehow. Hypnosis, maybe if I started smoking, it would unlock parts of my brain, like if I lit a cigarette, the nicotine would go, and the door would open. I don't know. But what I do know is that I've always been fascinated by movies, and some kids are different. Some kids get into sports because their home life revolves around sporting events, My home life did revolve around sporting events. My mother's boyfriends were always into every sporting event. If you've ever listened to the episode The Drunks, she had these drunks that she brought home from Tennessee, and they would have watched cockroach racing if it had been aired, but they watched every sporting event that they could find on the tube. And sometimes they recorded them. They would record on our beta player. They would record football games so they could watch when there was no football game on. And I just was like, oh boy, and I didn't have I didn't have a TV in my room. I didn't get a television in my room until I was probably, it was late. 15 maybe? Could have even been 16. Because, in the 80s, televisions were expensive. They weren't disposable the way they are now. You can go buy I just bought Josie a flat screen TV for, I think it was $100 for a really nice flat screen TV. I would have killed for that. I used to ride my bike around looking for a TV on the side of the road. And if you've listened to the Berg episode, I finally did buy myself a television. It was about, a 16-inch, 18-inch giant television, tube television with a wood grain cabinet that I put on a one of those microwave carts made of, you put together at a press board that had wood grain stickers on the side to make it look like wood. It was the most rickety thing ever, but I had a TV. And on the Berg episode, I talked about how I used to get stuff in the mail, and I got one of those. I got on a sample list for all these companies. They would send me samples of stuff, and one of the companies that sent me samples was security tags, like property of, and they were made of like really thin metal, but they were stickers made to look really formidable, so that if you saw it on, if you saw it on something, you'd go, oh, that belongs to somebody, I'm gonna put that back. And one of them said property of Holiday Inn. I think it was Michigan. And I stuck it on the TV. I was like, oh, this is cool. It looked like the TVs from the Holiday Inn, Michigan, or whatever state it was. And I remember Berg going, I know you stole that TV. I'm gonna call the Holiday Inn because I know you stole that TV. Like, I didn't steal it. You're such an idiot, Berg. I didn't steal the TV. It's a sticker. So I remember loving movies and watching the Family Film Festival on Channel 5 every weekend with Tom Hatton and watching so many classic movies. Just, buckets of them. Abbott and Costello Meet the Frankenstein, The Wolfman, Abbott and Costello in Africa Screams, The Bowery Boys, all of the Three Stooges, all the Little Rascals, by osmosis with the Drunks. I've seen almost every John Wayne movie there is. My favorite's The Quiet Man. But it's funny, I was talking to my kids the other day, they don't even know who John Wayne is. Like, isn't that funny how massively huge, big movie stars eventually do fade away? But I remember by 18, I had a TV, I had a Laserdisc player, I had a VCR, I had I had 2 giant speakers connected to a stereo, connected to all that so I could blow the audio out the door. I had the 80s version of a home theater, which wasn't much of a home theater. But I also collected, VHS movies, beta movies, and Laserdisc movies. I remember getting a beta machine off of the Recycler. Remember the Recycler? It was one of those, if you got the Recycler when it first came out, they had a section in it for free stuff. And if you were the first person to call, you could get some pretty cool stuff for just picking it up. I remember one time there was an ultralight. Remember what an ultralight is? It's a rickety contraption with a lawnmower on the back and wings, and you can fly in it. And I called that number the second I saw it, and somebody beat me to it, but I would have had a damn ultralight, just like in Howard the Duck. But I did get a beta machine off of the Recycler for free. It was a beta machine from, I'm not joking, 1978. It weighed about 40 pounds. It was as big as the top part of an industrial copy machine. And if you've ever taken a VCR apart, there were 2 ways that VCRs worked. They all did the same thing. The tape went in and it ran through a head, and it picked up the magnetic images on it and played it on your screen. But there were 2 ways that they worked, and the VHS one, you put the tape in and it set idle. When you hit the play button, then you could hear the machine pulling the tape out of tape out of the cassette and running it through the heads. This beta, the minute you put the tape in, would pull the magnetic tape out and run it through the heads. So it was always ready for you. Well, it never worked, man. This thing was so old, it had dials on it on the top to change the channel. It actually had dials on it. But I must have worked with that thing for about 2 years trying to get it to work. Never could figure it out. Finally had to wait until my mother upgraded the living room from a beta to a VHS, finally. And I got that old beta along with all 75 or 80 tapes that we had. So that was the beginning of hoarding movies. I'm looking to my left now. I have hundreds of DVDs and Blu-rays I'm looking at. Because it never goes away. They can yap all they want about digital this and ultraviolet that. I like to have the disc in my hand when I want to watch it, and that's because I'm old. There are some services that work. I mean, Plex is amazing. Netflix is amazing. Hulu is pretty amazing. There were some others we've tried. The CBS app, and all trying to watch Star Trek. But I'll never break the habit of collecting physical media. That's just ingrained in me because that's what we did, And it's like when Rachel's mother used to come over and visit, nothing got thrown away. She would figure out how to save, newspapers went in a pile, glass jars went in a pile, the metal lids from the glass jars went in a pile. And it's because she grew up during the Depression when nothing was thrown away and everything was saved, recycled, reused, and to its full degree. And it's one of those things, like I used to say, you just can't break people of that. That's just the way they are. And so it's interesting that I'm seeing it in myself of how I'm hoarding movies. And I go to the thrift stores or swap meets, and I just can't help it. I mean, a movie for $1? That's insane. The cheapest movie I ever got when I was a kid was $1.50 at Laundry 6. Or sometimes John English brought me movies that they had thrown out from multi-video because there had been too many repairs to them and they couldn't risk renting them out again. And that's how I got Live and Die in LA. I would never have watched that movie on my own. And European Vacation, which was great, and a few others. But long story endless is that I've just seen a lot of movies. I inhale them. I love watching movies. I love familiar movies because they make you feel good. You know how it's going to end. It's fun to catch new things in the background. I give new movies a try. Rachel and I just went and saw Book Club, which is about 4 older women reading Shades of Grey, and it's it's one of those weird summer counter programming movies, which I always say you should support or they'll stop making it. Book Club's actually done very well on a $10 million buy-in from Paramount. It's already made 50, which is pretty amazing. But it just goes to show you that older people like to go to the movies too, and not everything has to be robots and ray guns and capes and superheroes punching each other. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I've seen all those too. But here's the deal. Though I have seen thousands of movies, there are movies I haven't seen. For some reason or another, there are movies that have simply eluded me, and I have not seen them. So, a couple of weeks back on the 91 Reasons page, I got the page up here. On May 14th, I said, I'm working on a very different podcast. List what you believe are the top 5 most famous movies. Not your favorites, what you think are the most famous. And there were a lot of really good movies on these. So, here's the thing. I'm gonna talk about the movies I haven't seen. And because these are the, ultra famous movies, I'll tell you what I think they're about, not having seen them. And it might be pretty funny for you because most people have seen these movies. And for whatever reason, I have just not seen them. Like, I'll give you an example. I was cast in Grease, the musical, in high school in 1984. I had never seen Grease. It had come out 8 years prior. It was a huge popular movie. It was on TV every weekend. I had trading cards. But I just had never bothered to watch it. It just didn't seem like something I would enjoy. Finally, after being cast, I thought, well, I should probably watch this. And it's great, Very few movies do I really, really loathe. There are a bunch of them that I would never watch again. But these are movies I have never seen. So let's go through some of the lists here. Star Wars, Tim Wilson writes, Star Wars, yes, I've seen Star Wars. Right after Star Wars, he writes, Gone with the Wind. I have never seen Gone with the Wind. I know, gasp. It's a 3-hour plus movie. It's one of those movies, I think they tried to make us watch it in high school. But I ditched because even though it was like a free period, watching a movie, I couldn't do it. I've seen a bunch of scenes from it. I know it's about the Civil War. I know it's about a plantation. I know that Vivian Leigh and Clark Gable are sort of lovers, and in the movie I know that she's a terrible person that has to go through strife. I know she starts out as a spoiled brat, and he's this Southern gentleman who's just not going to put up with it. And I think, doesn't she have to choose at one point between him and George Reeves, who played Superman? And then the Civil War happens, and Tara, the plantation, gets burned to the ground, or something like that, and she swears she'll never go hungry again, and what's her name plays the black lady plays the housekeeper. I mean, I know she's fantastic. Hattie McDaniel, I know she's fantastic in it. But it ends with what about me, Rat? Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Which at the time of its release was a huge, big friggin' deal. I also know that behind the scenes that the same guy who directed, and this was from 1939, the same guy who directed Gone with the Wind also directed The Wizard of Oz. Victor Fleming, I think his name is. I'm doing this all from memory. But I know that Gone with the Wind is this big, sprawling, arguably, I think the numbers say more people have seen Gone with the Wind than any motion picture in history. Because it ran for years during the 30s and 40s. Admission was a nickel. So it's a different box office take. It made a ton of money. Adjusted for inflation, it's the number one grossing film of all time. And yet, I have never seen it. I don't know if I even want to rectify that. I don't know if I want to watch a 3-hour movie like that. Because there are so many movies I would love to see instead. If they said, look, we're going to put Gone with the Wind here, and then 5 other movies. I don't know if I think I'd rather watch one of those 5 other movies. It's a rare case where the subject matter, the tone, just doesn't interest me. And I may be being naive and ignorant because it took some prodding for me to watch Casablanca, of which I've seen Casablanca now 3 or 4 times, and I cry like a baby every single time. What a fantastic, fantastic movie. I may be doing myself a disservice by not watching it. So, what are your thoughts, Gone with the Wind, huh? Let's go down the list some more. Right after Gone with the Wind is The Wizard of Oz. The thing about The Wizard of Oz, my Generation X, my generation, we couldn't escape The Wizard of Oz. It was a Thanksgiving tradition, for a movie that bombed when it came out. They really discovered that if they made an event on television, that everybody would tune in. Huge, massive Super Bowl type ratings for The Wizard of Oz in the early to late 70s and into the 80s even, before home video took over and you could put it on any time. You made an appointment to see The Wizard of Oz. My mother was a big Wizard of Oz fan. Here's the thing. My mother was also a Gone with the Wind fan, but we never watched it with her. Now, Wizard of Oz was different. We watched Wizard of Oz every single year. We had all the Mego dolls. We had the Emerald City playset. So Wizard of Oz was big in our family. He also writes Casablanca. I've seen Casablanca. Citizen Kane. And here's another interesting film. Now, I have seen Citizen Kane. It was one of those films that came out on Laserdisc as a deluxe, from the masters of filmmaking comes Citizen Kane. And I watched Citizen Kane. It is a fantastic film. It has so many movie tropes that exist to this day that were in that movie for the first time, flashbacks being the big one, and amazing camera shots. You're just like, I don't know how they're doing that back in that time frame. But no, a fantastic film. And one of those weird films that Orson Welles, who wrote and directed it at a very young age, was able to put a cap on it and say no one can ever mess with it. It can't be colorized. It can't be edited. It can't be messed with because of Orson Welles' contract on it. So, hey Tim, good list. You got me with Gone with the Wind, man. I've never seen it. Jessica writes, Star Wars, yes. Titanic, yes. Gone with the Wind. There we go. Wizard of Oz. And then Home Alone, which I think is very funny. I saw Titanic in the theater. I saw Titanic when it was re-released in 3D. Titanic, the best 3D film I have ever seen. 3D was not shot in 3D, but it was remastered by James Cameron himself for 3D, and it was stunning. Home Alone. Here's the weird thing. I'm actually a big fan of Home Alone. Isn't that weird? Like, it's supposed to be this big, treacly garbage of a movie. Made, it was one of the number one movie that when it came out in 90. I actually really enjoy Home Alone. It's one of my guilty pleasures. My wife Rachel writes, Wizard of Oz, yes. Gone with the Wind, it was Gone with the Wind. Jaws and Grease. I talked about Grease. Talk about Jaws. I saw Jaws pretty late too. My mom did not take us to the theater in 75 to see Jaws. I was only 4 years old. Now Rachel remembers going. I don't. I think I saw Jaws, it was pretty late in the game, on home video. Probably 84 or 85. Probably watched it in a marathon of Jaws, Jaws 2, and Jaws 3D, and Jaws the Revenge with Michael Caine. Because yes, I've seen them all. But Gone with the Wind there on the list, yes. Joey Bryan writes, Wizard of Oz, Star Wars, Gone with the Wind. All right, here we go. Rambo. I have never seen any of the Rambo movies. I never really got into Sylvester Stallone because Joey writes right after that Rocky. I've seen Rocky. Rocky was very popular. Rambo was very popular too. But I remember seeing Rocky and enjoying it, especially the later sequels, which I know sounds like blasphemy. But Rocky 3, Eye of the Tiger, Clubber Lang. But I never got into those Rambo movies. I know that First Blood, I've seen parts of First Blood, is a very different movie than the other Rambo movies. First Blood is a serious movie about a Vietnam vet who gets shunned. I am making this up from the trailers I've seen and the scenes I've seen. He gets shunned or something and turned away, so he's out living in the forest, and they come to get him. And so, is it Brian Denny or Richard Crenna? I'm not sure. And they try to coax him back into society, and he's like, no. And he's like, you killed people. They do First Blood. I mean, I've seen all that stuff, but I don't know how the movie ends. I don't know how it's even connected to those other films where he's all greased up with the headband and firing 2 machine guns. I just never got into Rambo. He was such a weird symbol of the 80s where every man wanted to be tough like Rambo. I never got into that. I never understood any of that. I bet if I sat and watched them, I'd probably enjoy them, but I have never seen any of those Rambo movies. How about that, Joey? All right, Amanda writes, Wizard of Oz, yes. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Star Wars, The Breakfast Club, and then she lists one I've never seen. I have never seen Psycho. I know, blasphemy, right? How can I be a movie fan and have never seen Psycho? Here's the thing. I never caught it on television, and I used to read all of those magazines. I read Starlog and Famous Monsters of Filmland and Fangoria, and some of them in the early issues would advertise 8mm movies. Like, you could get scenes from it. I remember dreaming because they had Star Wars, and if I bought that, I could have like 15 minutes of silent Star Wars footage in my living room. How cool is that? And then right next to it, it had that weird image, like a pencil image of Janet Leigh in the shower, her face, where she's being murdered, and it said, Pishiku. And I was like, I don't know what that movie is, but that looks stupid, because I was a dumb kid. I was stupid. I don't know what that is. And then when I started working at the video store, oh, it's Psycho. The P is silent, dummy. And it's actually a masterpiece of horror, yet it's one of those movies I've just never seen. And I know that there was a Psycho 2 and a Psycho 3, and then a Psycho remake by Gus Van Sant. And usually, when a movie turns into a franchise like that, especially Psycho 2 and Psycho 3, because that was right when I was a huge movie-going guy. Usually when that happens, I will go see it and then either retroactively watch the tape or watch the tape before I go out to the theater. For whatever reason, I missed all these Psycho movies. I have never seen any of them. I know the plot. I know that it starts off with Janet Leigh ripping somebody off, and running off with the money, and then she gets murdered. You think she's the main character. She gets murdered in the shower, and then there's this, it's the Bates Motel, and Norman Bates runs the motel with his mother, so people are dying, and we know that Norman's the killer, or Norman might not be the killer, and he talks to his mother, and then finally, boom, the reveal is Mom's dead, she's been mummified, and that he's been running around in a wig and a dress, talking to himself. He's completely insane. I'm sure if I sat down and watched it, I would enjoy the hell out of it. Anthony Perkins has done some amazing work. But again, you can't see every movie. It's just interesting to sit down and go, these are the movies that everyone has universally agreed on are amazing. And for some reason, I just miss them. And I can even remember Siskel and Ebert reviewing Psycho 3. And there's a scene where Norman's got a body in the ice machine, that you open up and you get ice out of, like for a hotel. And the police chief is eating the ice that the blood is running into. Like, I remember looking for the body. I remember going, that looks pretty good. But again, for what I can't even describe why. I just never caught those movies. All right, that's a good one, Amanda. All right, Greg writes, Star Wars, yes. Raiders of the Lost Ark, one of my favorites. Wizard of Oz, Jaws, and The Godfather. Now, I'm not going to stun you by saying I've not seen The Godfather. I was forced by a good friend of mine to watch The Godfather. He said, you're an idiot. You have to watch these movies. And I sat down and one is fantastic. 2 is unbelievable. 3, not so good. But I did watch them all in a row. I did enjoy the hell out of them. I would watch them again. Those are fantastic films. All right, Carl writes, oh boy, this is going to be a good one. Some Like It Hot. I have never seen Some Like It Hot. I know this is Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, Marilyn Monroe, where the guys have to dress up why they dress up like women, I have no idea. I don't know. Are they on the run from somebody? Are they hiding out? I don't know. I know that, here, I could give you, this is an easy one. I've never seen any of Marilyn Monroe movies. I was never seen A 7-Year Itch or Bus Stop or, The Searchers that she's in? I don't remember. What's that last one that she's in? I have never seen her movies. I don't know what she does in them. I was never a fan of Marilyn Monroe. I never understood it. Maybe if I saw the movies, I would change my mind. Probably I would. I have never seen these. I did buy Some Like It Hot at the swap meet, so it is on my pile to watch. But I haven't seen it. Isn't that weird? It's Billy Wilder too. Billy Wilder's fantastic. Again, it's one of those things I'm sure that I'll dig it. Just got to get to it. All right. Carl also writes Taxi Driver. I saw Taxi Driver, fantastic film. Wondering if did it really happen? Did he really get revenge at the end? Or is it all, some people say the ending is a dream, but Taxi Driver is fantastic. He also writes Psycho. I just talked about Psycho. Rebel Without a Cause. Now, as a big Morrissey fan, and Morrissey was a huge fan of James Dean, it probably would shock you. I've never seen any James Dean movies. I have never seen Rebel Without a Cause. I've never seen Giant. Again, it's just one of those, or East of Eden. I've never seen them. Can't tell you why. Just one of those things that slipped through. Now, in high school, my friend John looked like James Dean, and he would wear a jacket and really play it up. I'm sure that got him a lot of girls. But I never got it. Now, Carl writes Rebel Without a Cause. I don't know what this movie's about. I know that James Dean says that you're tearing me apart. He says one thing, you say another, then you both go back. And there's a scene at the end at the Griffith Observatory where Sal Mineo has a gun, but James Dean has the bullets. I got the bullets! And then they shoot him, Sal Mineo, but I don't... here's the thing. I have no freaking concept what this movie's about. I know Carl Malden is in it, but I don't know the plot. Like, zero. I have nothing. I don't know anything of the plot of Rebel Without a Cause. So that's got to make my list of movies because I don't even know what it's about. And finally, he writes The Grapes of Wrath. Here's the thing with Grapes of Wrath. I might have seen it, but I don't remember it. I know that, what's his name? Henry Fonda's in it. Novel by John Steinbeck. It's about the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, but I don't. No, I'm at a loss. Good list, Carl, man. That's 3. Something Like It Hot, no. Rebel Without a Cause, no. And even Grapes of Wrath, I'm going to say no. Grapes of Wrath, if I had to, like, what is it about? It is about a family trying to farm grapes in the Great Depression, and nothing will grow in the Dust Bowl, so they have to pull up their bootstraps and move on. Does that sound good? Is that the plot? I don't know. All right, good friend of the show, Zach writes, Dracula, 1931. That's the Bela Lugosi one. I have never seen the Bela Lugosi Dracula. I've seen tons of versions of Dracula, but I've never seen the Bela Lugosi. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? I'm a movie fan. What the hell? What's wrong with me? There's just nothing that I've never sat down and watched a lot of those Universal monster movies. They're on my list. They're on my list. I know that the plot is the plot of Dracula. Oh my God. Now I've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula because of, Winona Ryder's in that. And that's where I know that the movie version is not the book. The 31 version is not the book. It's based off a stage play that Lugosi was in. Dracula comes to town to get something to feed and starts seducing women and feeding, and then the bad guys have to take him out. But I don't know what the actual plot is other than he's a vampire. I don't know. All right, King Kong. I've seen King Kong. I saw the original version. I saw the Jeff Bridges version. And then I saw the horrible Peter Jackson version. I've even seen Kong Lives with Linda Hamilton. Snow White, seen it. Star Wars, yes. Greg Lee writes, Star Wars, yes. Goodfellas, oh, fantastic movie. Jaws, Pulp Fiction, seen it. Brian writes, Gone with the Wind. Avatar, seen it. Star Wars, yes. Titanic. And then he gets me on one. Now, the movie that he gets me on, I was talking to some guys at work about this. They have to picture it. I'm in the hallway talking to 2 guys who are each in their office doorways about movies I have and have not seen and the plot of this episode that I was going to make. And when I got to this particular title, when I got to this particular title and told them I hadn't seen The Sound of Music, they both slammed their doors in unison on me, and I had to leave. I don't know. I know this is on every Thanksgiving. Julie Andrews, it won a lot of awards. Christopher Plummer, but I have no idea. Everybody's seen the scene of her in the meadow, sweeping her arms and turning in a circle, but as far as the plot of the movie, she's it's almost like Mary Poppins, right? She's a music-inclined housekeeper babysitter, caretaker of children who comes to town and teaches the children to sing. The difference is that the Nazis are coming, so they have to, at some point, get the hell out of Dodge. I don't know. I remember I was telling the guys at work, I had tuned into the live version on NBC, and it was them creeping through like a mausoleum or something, and it was the most boring soap opera looking thing I've ever. It looked like Dark Shadows, and I was like, why would anybody watch this? Now that's not the movie, and the movie's a classic, It's gotta be good for a reason, right? But I've never seen The Sound of Music. How weird is that? Okay, Kevin Horton writes, Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, Casablanca, Star Wars, and then he gets me on one. I have never seen Sunset Boulevard. I have no idea. I know it features the line where she says something to the effect of, it's not me that got big, it's the screens, and I'm not sure, I don't know how the line is. It's about a young man. I mean, isn't he floating in the pool dead? But then we rewind and find out about he's shacking up or helping this aging film star, and I don't know. It must take place on Sunset Boulevard. I have no idea. It's like Chinatown where the locale matters at the end. I don't know. Sunset Boulevard. They even made a musical out of it. But I've never seen Sunset Boulevard. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Like, isn't that from Sunset Boulevard? I'm not talking to anybody in particular. I'm talking to you. Are you nodding? Yes, somebody's nodding. Okay. All right, David Carrero writes, Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, Citizen Kane, The Wizard of Oz, The Godfather. That's a great list. Adam writes, Star Wars, Casablanca, The Godfather, Wizard of Oz. Jeff DePauli writes, Gone with the Wind, Titanic, Star Wars, Casablanca, Wizard of Oz. Glenn Schmidt, Star Wars, Casablanca, Citizen Kane, Wizard of Oz, and Snow White. Michael Bondi writes, Star Wars, The Godfather, Scarface. Now, I did watch Scarface with a friend, and I was confused because I had always thought Scarface was a mob guy in the 30s, and the movie takes place like in the late 70s, early 80s, the Oliver Stone one, the Brian De Palma one. And I think Stone wrote it. But I remember watching it and he goes, no, Jeff, it's updated. Like it's been transplanted. Oh, I didn't get that part of it. Boy, has any movie been turned into a cartoon more than Scarface? Like all these t-shirts, and you go to Swap Meet, they have posters and they've made action figures. Like it's just been merchandised to death and glorified. Like Scarface has been glorified beyond anything. Like it's weird to glorify Darth Vader. I've said that on the show. But to glorify Scarface, weird. It's got a nice turn in it by what's his name from Amadeus? I can't think of his name. One of my favorite actors who played Salieri. Great actor. F. Murray Abraham. Okay, Michael also writes The Lion King, Casablanca. I've seen them both. Randy Villani writes, this is a goof. Leonard Part 6. I've seen it. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. I've seen it. The Shadow. Oh man. Did he really put The Shadow in the middle of this list of schlock? I mean, Leonard Part 6 is the Bill Cosby movie that he tried to buy back from the studio. It's so bad. People brought in the video store like, are there more of these? I think, no, they wrote Part 6 as a joke. And did you enjoy it? No. Then why would you want to watch any more? You would watch 5 more of these? Are you out of your mind? Attack of the Killer Tomatoes is dumb on purpose. The sequel is actually very funny with George Clooney. Yeah, Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes or Return of the Killer Tomatoes. John Astin and George Clooney. Very funny movie. They run out of money in the middle, have to do product placement, so they're debating the tomatoes while people are putting boxes of cereal in front of them. Very funny movie. But to put The Shadow in there, that's the Russell McKay directed Alec Baldwin film that had a toy line, was supposed to be the start of a franchise. Not a bad movie. It's got some wonky parts, but The Shadow's not Leonard Part 6 bad. Randy also writes Xanadu. I've never seen Xanadu. Does it count? Should I even talk about Xanadu in the same breath that we're talking about Gone with the Wind and other classic movies? I know it's a terrible movie about roller skating, And the guy who starred in The Warriors said every door in Hollywood that The Warriors opened, Xanadu closed. That's how bad Xanadu is. Flash Gordon. I've seen Flash Gordon. I love Flash Gordon. It's good because it's cheesy. Nicholas Jordan writes, don't forget about The Love Guru, Pluto Nash, and Suicide Squad. 3 of cinema's, nay, 3 of humanity's greatest achievements. Yes, and I've seen all 3 of those pieces of garbage. Oh boy. Nathan couldn't even get it down to 5. Donovan writes, Star Wars, Casablanca, Citizen Kane, Wizard of Oz, and Snow White. Nicholas Jordan writes, hold on, it screwed up here. Where'd it go? Wizard of Oz and A New Hope. So thank you everybody for your list. Those are fantastic choices. I also wrote down some of my own that I have not seen. Some of these will shock you into oblivion. Top of my list was Gone with the Wind. Next film I've never seen. I have never sat down and watched 2001, A Space Odyssey. I know, right? I'm a science fiction nerd. It's just one of those movies that has just slipped by me every time. I think, if I remember correctly, I brought the Laserdisc home to watch one night, and it wouldn't play. And that soured me on it, and I never went back. What is the plot of 2001? It opens with apes, and the first ape to use a bone as a tool becomes humanity's journey into the stars, and culminating with a computer program becoming self-aware and not listening to its human programmers anymore. And then somebody moves through light speed and experiences meeting some version of God. Did I get it right? I have no idea. I did see Interstellar, and I wish I'd watched 2001 instead. Does that help you? I've never seen Easy Rider. This is a classic. Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson, hitting the open road. For some reason, I've never watched it. I know that it's about guys riding motorcycles, having a campfire, and smoking pot. Did I hit the brush strokes of the movie? The English Patient. I mean, it's not a classic, but I've never seen it. It's a Best Picture winner. And I usually try to watch all the Best Picture winners. For some reason, English Patient, I've tried to watch 3 or 4 times, and I've turned it off. I don't know what it's about. I know it's about a disfigured man in a cave. But other than that, I have no concept. Okay, this one's going to hurt a lot of people. But this is a knee-jerk reaction to my childhood where the drunks would watch Stagecoach and The War Wagon and The Green Berets and All Quiet on the Western Front. And they would put on this movie and I would just run. I bet if I watched it now, I would enjoy the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I've never seen any of the Clint Eastwood, Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns. I've never seen them. I gotta find a box set at the swap meet and put them on. Doo-doo-doo, wow, wow. I've never seen it. It's about a guy who... Clint Eastwood plays a guy that they hang, but he escapes, so he hunts them all down, and he's like, if you're gonna hang a guy, you better make sure he's dead. Right? I mean, close enough? Is that the movie? I have no idea. And then he's got a bulletproof vest. I know that because I've seen Back to the Future 3, which references it. Okay, or Back to the Future 2, actually, references that scene. And then 3, Marty tells everybody his name is Clint Eastwood. Okay, this one is crazy. I have tried to watch this movie. For whatever reason, I am stymied at every turn. I've never seen Apocalypse Now. I have no excuse for it. It was... it's directed by Francis Ford Coppola. It was written by, I think, John Milius with some help from George Lucas, of all people. Harrison Ford has a cameo in it as Colonel or General Lucas. Marlon Brando, and Martin Sheen, and Robert Duvall. I love Robert Duvall. I've never seen it. I can't I can't give you an excuse. And then I wrote Sunset Boulevard. That's a big one. But isn't it weird, like, to sit down and go, these are staples of the movie world that I simply have not watched? I got to get to some of these, and maybe I'll review them on the show. There'll be a companion shows to this show where I finally sit down and watch these movies. But for some reason, it just hasn't been in the cards. So I apologize for being your movie nerd guru who has not seen a bunch of movies. But hey, I did see Solo, A Star Wars Story. So I'm not entirely without merit here, huh? How funny is that? Hey, thanks for tuning in. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's 91 Reasons Podcast on YouTube. All of the shows that I have done are archived there as videos. You can put them on during work if you want to put them in the background. But I was demonetized because I don't have 1,000 subscribers. So if you could help me get to 1,000 subscribers, that would be swell. Because there's $80 sitting in my Google AdSense account that they won't give me till it reaches 100. But it can't reach 100 because I've been demonetized. Because I don't have enough subscribers. I mean, how crazy is that? So it's all silly. But hey, if you want to subscribe, that's great. If you don't, it's neither here nor there. Thanks for listening to this show. More episodes are on the way. I am Jeff Tucker. I am the voice. And this is the movie absent watcher. That doesn't work. I am the movie ignorant reviewer. No. I am the guy who didn't see a lot of classics, but watched a lot of crap anyways. Jeff Tucker, the voice of 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
Then it's time to sink your teeth into cheap chills with a festival of Fright Night titles at just $14.98 each. It's a collection of classic horror, beginning with director Joe Dante's tale of the supernatural creature who stalks human prey. Dee Wallace and Christopher Stone star in The Howling.
How can a man drown and not touch the water?
Beware the Fog. Cult director John Carpenter's eerie tale of revenge and horror features a star-studded cast, including Jamie Lee Curtis, Hal Holbrook, Janet Leigh, Adrienne Barbeau, and John Houseman. Scanner stars Jennifer O'Neill in a mind-shattering thriller that explores the power of the human brain.
I know what it feels like to die.
In Phantasm, two brothers discover the secret of the living dead, and their horrible nightmare becomes a terrifying reality. They're the perfect family, living the American dream. But when Daddy's plans go awry, he must kill again and again. Shelley Hack is desperate to protect her daughter in The Stepfather. Set in the marshes of Florida, Swamp Thing pits the forces of good against evil. This creature feature starring Adrienne Barbeau and Louis Jourdan is guaranteed to keep your customers on the edge of their seats. It's a catalog of classic horror, made to terrify and electrify even the strongest of stomachs. Add titles like Final Exam, Humongous, Magic, Mausoleum, Scalpel, Slaughterhouse, Sleepaway Camp 2, Slumber Party Massacre, and Slumber Party Massacre 2. And you've got a sell-through promotion that gives true meaning to the term shock value. Order cutoff date, September 11th, 1990. Street date, September 27th, 1990.